When courageous individuals dared to challenge the status quo and blew the whistle on the secrets that those in power would rather keep hidden, we chose not to believe them. Despite the initial ridicule, these conspiracy theories were found out to be alarmingly true. Number 10. Theorists could only guess what was happening behind the closed doors of the government's most elusive entities. Conspiracy theories referenced mind control, biological warfare, and the development of nuclear weapons happening right under our noses. These ideas were passed off as mere delusions, but when some of them materialized into very real projects, the world was left stunned. In the making of Project MKUltra, it became easier for more conspiracy theories to be made and easier for the masses to believe. MKUltra was a program undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. The project focused on human experimentation with the development of narcotics that could potentially be used for interrogation purposes. The CIA was in search of products that would not just weaken individuals, but force them into confessions. It was the abuse of power that saw the covert administration of psychoactive narcotics, sensory deprivation, electroshocks, hypnosis, and torture. MKUltra is among the better-known secret operations, dictated by the very forces that are meant to protect us. But one secretive program is less mentioned, but was the immediate successor to the interrogation and human experimentation project. MK Naomi was connected to the 1950s Cold War project, designed and carried out by the CIA and their joint force, the U.S. Department of Defense. Declassified information regarding this covert operation is scarce, but it's known that the project sought to investigate biological warfare agents, including the storing and delivery of such agents. The materials were developed in such a way that they could either incapacitate or take the life of the test subject. The goal of the project was to determine substances and chemicals that could be used as weapons against enemies and targets. MKUltra focused on the weaponization of mind control, whereas MK Naomi focused on the weaponization of bacteria and viruses. It also delved into knockout gases and lethal poisons. The Technical Services Division of the CIA was tasked with developing an armory of potentially fatal weapons. The United States Special Operations Command was assigned to conduct and assist the testing of such materials. The project inevitably led to the creation of various weapons that could fire darts that were coated with some scary and often fatal biological agents, all of which were done without the authorization of Congress or the President. These coated darts would be used to render guard dogs incapacitated, allowing agents to infiltrate any area they wanted to. They would then use a remedial agent to awaken the sleeping dogs once they exited the area, covering their tracks as they did so. The Church Committee had uncovered a memo relating to MK Naomi in 1967, which seemingly related to using such weapons on crops. In 1969, following the discovery of the project and what it was really being used for, as well as the tests that were being conducted, Richard Nixon banned the use of biological weapons. By the end of the Church Committee's investigation into the operation, they discovered that the CIA had developed biological agents in such high quantities that the stockpile that they had acquired up until that point could potentially take out tens of thousands of citizens. They also had an arsenal of weapons that could be used to deliver them. Number 9. Martin Luther King Jr. was a social activist and the leader of the civil rights movement in the U.S. He led the movement since the mid-1950s until his unfortunate assassination in 1968. After arriving in Memphis, Tennessee, King made the "I've been to the mountaintop" speech and was later assassinated on his balcony outside of his Lorraine motel room. Ever since the said assassination, various conspiracy theories have come about regarding why it happened and who was involved. It's often the case with the assassinations of high-up notable figures that conspiracy theories regarding the government begin to emerge. Such was the case with King, with theorists circulating the idea that the CIA or FBI had a hand in the assassination. Various aspects of the case were cited to bolster the idea of the government's involvement. This included the FBI reportedly anonymously emailing Coretta Scott King in an effort to destroy their marriage. On the day of the assassination, Solomon Jones, who was present at the time, claimed to have seen someone hiding in the nearby bushes, and the following day, Memphis Public Works employees removed that very bush. These were outlandish ideas that were being circulated at the time, along with the conspiracy that the same government forces were spying on King. Many saw this claim as another conspiracy theory running rampant, and skeptics argued against it. The idea that the CIA and FBI were surveying King remained nothing more than another out-there conspiracy theory until 2014. The theorists had tried to warn everyone, but their views were seen as senseless and wild. It turned out, though, that their ideas were accurate. The FBI had in fact been spying on the civil rights movement leader. From 1963 to 1968, the FBI had set out an intense campaign to discredit King. Through the Freedom of Information Act, all the files relating to the assassination of the activist became public knowledge. They revealed how the government had targeted him and his associates, which all began with wiretapping. The wiretapping soon ballooned into paying informants to spy on King. The files also showed evidence of the FBI shifting their focus onto his infidelity by bugging his hotel rooms. After gathering sufficient information about him, the FBI penned an anonymous letter and sent it to him, along with the tapes. Dubbed the FBI King letter, found by historian Beverly Gage in the unsealed files of J. Edgar Hoover, the former director of the FBI revealed that he was being brazenly threatened, using extramarital affairs as blackmail. After calling him a fraud, a psychopath, evil, and moronic, the letter further said, "King, there's only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is." The letter had been written as though it was from someone close to him and was unsigned. But since it was stashed in the files relating to the FBI and the surveillance campaign, it became clear that the writer was not someone close to him. Rather, he was written to by the Bureau in an effort to discourage him. So it turned out that the conspiracy theorists were right. The FBI was spying on King and was even blackmailing and threatening him. With this confirmed information, more theories about their hand in his assassination abound, but no definitive proof directly connects the government to the incident. At least not yet. Number 8. Compared to the biggest scandal ever committed by the world's leading financial banks, the Illuminati looked like amateurs. Conspiracy theorists are owed an apology by skeptics who doubted their warning of the hidden hands of the Rothschilds, the Masons, and the Illuminati greedily submerged in the finances that run the world. The theorists were right. The world is just one big rigged game being controlled by unseen entities. While the players in this scandal may not be as sinister as the Illuminati, theorists were on the right track. In 2012 and 2013, stories of corruption began to spill out of the financial sectors. The story suggested that the world's largest and leading banks might be controlling anything that has to do with money, which is just about everything. The rumors suggested that the banks were fixing prices. It all began in 2012 with the Libor scandal that saw at least 3 massive banks manipulating the global interest rates. While doing so, they messed around with financial instruments worth more than $500 trillion. Libor, or London Interbank Offered Rate, serves as the global benchmark for interest rates concerning everything from credit cards to leading financial derivatives. It's the average interest calculated through the submission of interest rates by the leading banks all over the world. The scandal began in 2007 when Barclays alerted the United States regulator to the concern that other banks were submitting dishonest low interbank rates. The following year, after the collapse of the Lehman Brothers, Libor saw rates spike. In 2010, an investigation was carried out into Barclays as part of the probe into interest rate manipulation. By August of 2011, money manager Charles Schwab Corp. filed a lawsuit against 11 major banks, accusing them of conspiring to manipulate Libor. By mid-2012, Barclays was fined over rate rigging, and by August, the investigation of Libor sent subpoenas to the Royal Bank, HSBC Holdings, Barclays, UBS, and other banks. By the end of the year, the investigation found that Barclays, UBS, RBS, and Rabobank were all involved in the scandal. Also involved in the scandal was Tom Hayes, a trader for UBS and Citigroup, who conspired to manipulate Libor. In 2015, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison for his role in the world's biggest financial scandal in history. The Libor scandal caused distrust in the financial sectors, and many leading banks were fined billions of dollars. It seemed, though, that there were still greedy hands pulling the strings in the world's finances. While Liebherr was still a prominent entity in this scandal, a new character was introduced. ICAP is the London-based firm and world's largest broker of interest rate swaps. Major corporations and sovereign governments use interest rate swaps to manage debt. It's a $370 trillion market. Any manipulation at all would massively affect the assets hundreds of times the size of the federal budget. Investigations into ICAP revealed a scandal reminiscent of the Liebherr mess. It was found that a group of brokers within ICAP had worked with other large banks to manage ISDA fix. ISDA fix refers to the benchmark number used worldwide to calculate the prices of interest rate swaps. Unsurprisingly, those involved in the scandal of fixing the prices of interest rate swaps are the very same mega banks mentioned in the Liebherr scandal, which includes Barclays, UBS, JP Morgan Chase, the Royal Bank, and Bank of America. These scandals, while they were reported, didn't gain the attention that other leading conspiracies did. This is because its scale was so massive that many would not be able to see it. It was not just the act of reaching a hand into a pocket and taking out the spare change. It was the act of theft in which the world's leading banks could hit a few crucial points and make whatever was in the pockets of society worth much less. It was corruption at its finest, directly impacting the world economy, all at the hands of the world's leading financial sector companies. Number 7. There are chemicals in the water. It's an idea that's long been screamed from the mouths of conspiracy theorists. Skeptics denied the dangers of forever chemicals, and so did the companies that produce them. Those same companies also denied that they were allowing the spread of harmful chemicals into the environment, posing a massive health risk to all. But the conspiracy fanatics were right. There are chemicals in the water, and they're here to stay. In fact, PFAS is in everything, everywhere, all the time. The forever chemicals were found to weaken the immune system, increase the risk of cancer, elevate liver enzymes, increase blood pressure, and even cause developmental delays in children, from accelerated puberty to low birth rate. The term forever chemicals sounds like a term coined by the world's leading conspiracy theorists. The term itself sounds like a conspiracy theory and is often used in conjunction with views involving the leading chemical-producing companies, contaminating water sources, and the reason behind various health issues. They tried to warn us not only of the impact, but also that many companies were responsible for the health risks involving the chemicals. Those who tried to warn us were labeled as environmentalist conspiracy theorists, who were just trying to get you to lessen your carbon footprint. If it hadn't been for a notable environmental attorney, we might never have known about the risk that one such company had posed to human health. Robert Billet, the attorney, first learned about DuPont, an American corporation that engaged in biotechnology, the manufacturing of chemicals and pharmaceuticals, when a local farmer made contact with him. The Parkersburg, West Virginia cattle rancher claimed that DuPont had fouled his property, and Billet began investigating. Wilbur Tennant explained that his cows were dropping like flies all over the place, and he was convinced that DuPont was responsible for it. When he tried to seek local assistance with the issue, he discovered that the company owned just about the whole town. After seeking help from the environmental attorney, who'd long been fighting against PFAS, DuPont found themselves faced with a federal lawsuit. Billet obtained a court order that forced DuPont to share all documentation relating to forever chemicals. He then received boxes of thousands of unorganized documents, and what the lawyer uncovered was sheer brazenness. It was an extraordinary cover-up of forever chemicals and contaminated water sources. Documents revealed that DuPont had instructed that the chemicals were not to be flushed into surface water or sewers, but did allow hundreds of thousands of PFOA powder to be released into the Ohio River, and 71,000 tons of laced sludge was dumped into pits, allowing the chemical to seep through the ground. DuPont was fully aware that the chemicals were cancer-causing, but had not briefed the public on their disposal of it, which ultimately ran into water sources that residents of Virginia and Ohio consumed. Further investigations revealed that surrounding residents had increased levels of PFOA, declared carcinogenic, in their bodies. Following a public brief against the company, immediate action was taken to regulate the forever chemicals, and DuPont would need to provide clean and safe water to those living near the factories. Despite paying compensation to those affected, the the damage had already been done. Many who lived around the factories are still suffering from the effects of the forever chemicals they consumed all those years ago. One such individual was Robin Andrews, who's been fighting not only an autoimmune disease, but also a thyroid condition linked to the drinking water that was tainted by carcinogenic chemicals. Many had tried to warn the masses about chemical-riddled waters, fluoridation, forever chemicals, and the health risks they pose. So it turned out that the tap water is toxic idea was, in fact, true, and continues to impact many today. Number 6. When unexplained car accidents, supposed cancers, and alleged heart attacks began taking out leading world figures, particularly in places such as Iran, Eastern Asia, South America, and the Middle East, many began to wonder why such things were happening, and if there wasn't an alternative explanation. An explanation that may involve the government, or more specifically, the CIA. The concept of a heart attack-inducing weapon is often associated with conspiracy theories. It's the allegation that the Central Intelligence Agency has manufactured a covert weapon that kicks off a heart attack and takes out its intended target. It sounded outlandish even to the conspiracy theorists themselves, but when 1975 rolled around, the CIA declassified their Cold War weapons and the testing that went along with it. Amid this declassification, out popped the very heart attack weapon that conspiracy theorists had long been citing. The battery-operated creation fired a dart of frozen water and shellfish toxins. Once the dart had entered its intended target, the ice would melt and release the toxin. The effects it had on the human body mimicked a heart attack, and no trace of the poison could be found during autopsies, leading to the COD being declared a heart attack and not CIA assassination. The secret CIA weapon was revealed and explained at a congressional testimony, of which there's video evidence. Aside from leaving a small hole in clothing and an almost undetectable red mark, the weapon was practically untraceable. The dart would also disappear and disintegrate into nothing. Following the Watergate scandal, the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence was formed. Known mostly as the Church Committee, its purpose was to investigate the CIA and FBI, ensuring that they were operating within the law. And they weren't. The committee found that the CIA was starting a hitman business with the help of their covert weapon. The discovery subsequently led to the filmed testimony. In the midst of the Cold War madness, only a few artifacts are as terrifying as the heart attack weapon that could end a life without so much as a trace. The James Bond-style weapon was created in the darkened labs, revealing the paranoia of the US government, which only sought to snuff out all signs of enemies, or anyone that they suspected of being an enemy, without accountability. Number 5. The chemicals in the water theory kept persisting. And while there were many skeptics protesting the idea, passing it off as another out-there conspiracy, some just couldn't ignore it. Was it snake venom, fluoride, or something more sinister? Panic flooded through towns, with many residents opting to buy bottled water for consumption so that they didn't have to drink contaminated water that would make them sick. Again, they blamed their cancers, fibromyalgia, asthma, and other ailments on alleged toxic water. The narrative seemed like another act of exploitation, a get-rich-quick scheme with baseless conspiracies about tap water. But for Hinckley, California, the threat was very much real. The town saw drawn curtains in the sweltering heat that forced residents to remain indoors. Along the empty roads, pipe stubs began to take on the form of air vents to an underground bunker. But they were not air vents, but groundwater monitoring wells that were installed by Pacific Gas and Electric, who supplied the town's water. The first sign of trouble revealed itself in the early 1990s, when resident Roberta Walker and her family began suffering from ailing health. The ailing health included 5 stomach surgeries, cancer, and fibromyalgia, initially attributed to just bad genes. But when PG&E began delivering bottled water to neighbors, alarm bells rang in Walker's mind. A representative for the company said that there was only a much less toxic chemical in the tap water, chromium-3. When she decided to make contact with the company, she would discover that the tap water that they'd been consuming for years was actually laced with chromium-6. Walker and her family began testing for chromium-6, and when they got their results back, they found that the poison was lurking in their bodies. 200 million Americans across 50 states have been exposed to the element from their very tap water. The odorless, tasteless, metallic element is naturally occurring and can be found in rocks, soil, and plants. While chromium-3 is an essential human dietary nutrient, chromium-6 is the toxic mineral form. Studies revealed that breathing in the particles can cause lung cancer, and it's also been connected with liver damage and developmental harm. PG&E served 4.2 million customers, and even though they knew about the chromium-6 being in the water, they failed to inform the local water board. So the residents of Hinckley got sicker and sicker, eventually drawing the attention of Aaron Brockovich, the environmental attorney, who also has ties to Robert Billet, who exposed DuPont. Brockovich, a single mother from Los Angeles, guided the group of residents in a direct action arbitration against PG&E. Investigations into the company discovered that they had dumped chromium-6 into an unlined pond back in the 50s and 60s. The chemicals were able to make their way into the town's groundwater, which the residents would unknowingly consume. Following the outbreak of seemingly unexplained ailments, PG&E hid the crisis and misled the residents on the effect that the chemical would have on them. They dismissed the idea that it was connected to any health problems in the town. But after finding out that they'd illegally dumped the chemicals and following tests and studies on chromium-6, they were found to be responsible for the health issues that plagued this small town. Number 4. It's long been rumored that the masses are being spied on by the government. The theorists warned that they're watching our every move. Every friend, family, or foe may be an undercover and secret spy. Claims of tracking chips in injection syringes have circulated since the dawn of medicine. Allegations of phone surveillance came with the modern era, and it hasn't stopped. Tinfoil hat wearers shout from rooftops about government surveillance, while skeptics retaliate with the logical question, what would they want to watch you for? What's so interesting about you that the government would waste precious resources to find out? It seemed illogical that they would waste such resources just to find out that Gary was cheating on his wife, or that Mildred didn't pay for that pair of high heels and was snickering about it to her online chat group. The government, the most secretive association of all, is a force field that attracts even the most bizarre conspiracy theories, from citizen spying to the Illuminati, shadow governing to planned assaults. The theories never stop forming, and many never believe them. It turns out, though, that on the odd occasion, a few such theories might actually be right. In fact, the whole narrative that the government would waste useful resources to find out what their most uninteresting citizens are doing is completely accurate. It all begins at the heart of the NSA, the National Security Agency, whose purpose is to ensure the safety of the country. If it wasn't for whistleblower Edward Snowden, we may never have known that we're being watched by the NSA itself. Snowden is a former technical assistant for the CIA, and back in 2013, he worked at the National Security Agency for 4 years. He was an employee of outside contractors, including Booz Allen and Dell. It was the then 29-year-old who unleashed numerous top-secret documents to the public, exposing a highly secretive organization and the ongoings behind the scenes. The first set of documents was accompanied by a letter in which Snowden wrote that he understood that he would be made to suffer for his actions. The disclosures he made revealed several global surveillance programs, many of which were being directly run by the NSA, as well as the Five Eyes intelligence alliance. This was all done with the cooperation of various telecommunication companies and the European government. Concerns about spying had already been in circulation before Snowden had revealed anything. Because of this, the top United States intelligence officials insisted that the NSA never knowingly collected any information from private phone records. Then, Snowden's disclosure revealed that they had, in fact, knowingly collected information from private phone records. Following this revelation, the officials admitted to the surveillance program conducted by the NSA and proceeded to defend the action by stating that it had played a crucial role in fighting crimes against the country. It allegedly allowed for the convictions of 4 men for providing aid to al-Shabaab militants. But the Court of Appeals revealed that the claims made by officials were inconsistent with the contents of classified records. The program was directly violating the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. That same act, in Section 702, allows the United States government to engage in warrantless surveillance of American international communications. These include calls, texts, social media messages, web browsing, and emails. The government claimed that they were only targeting criminals, spies, and foreigners. But in the course of such surveillance, the government ensnared the entirety of America, a violation of constitutional rights. Number 3. This wasn't the only conspiracy-turned-fact connected to the NSA. Prior to the government confirming the agency's existence, the idea of it was nothing more than a conspiracy theory. It was during the Cold War that some citizens of the United States began circulating rumors regarding the existence of a supposed secret agency, hidden in the depths of the security organizations present within the government. Washington insiders had referred to the NSA as no such agency because the government was denying its existence. The NSA is dedicated to intercepting and decoding foreign communications and apparently spying on the masses too. President Truman created the agency in 1952 and issued a classified memorandum to do so. This was followed up with the National Security Council Intelligence Directive 9. The classified directive stated that the National Security Agency would be the executive agent for foreign communications intelligence. Since both the memorandum and the directive were classified, the NSA was unknown to the public, and only guesses as to its existence were made. Since its creation in 1952, the NSA remained a secret until 1975. Following the Watergate scandal, a congressional hearing led by Senator Frank Church ultimately revealed the existence of no such agency. Congress had discovered that the agency, in collaboration with SIGINT and the Government Communications Headquarters, had been intercepting the international communication of anti-Vietnam war leaders. The Church Senate hearings led to the establishment of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which required warrants to conduct surveillance within the U.S. The hearings began looking into the opponents that the NSA had been surveying, and the list was startling. It was found that the agency was surveying Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, and Howard Backer, among other civil rights figures. For 23 years, the National Security Agency had remained a federal secret until it came into the view of the Church Committee, which was investigating allegations of domestic spying. After publishing their report on the NSA's role in intercepting communications and revealing the monitoring of American citizens, the activities of the agency have been constantly scrutinized. The NSA went from being the subject of conspiracy theory to having its existence denied, to being proven true, and then to becoming the subject of controversy, whistleblowing, and scrutiny. Number 2. One of the most well-known conspiracy theories concerning the United States government is that of the Illuminati, the shadow government, or the New World Order. Americans often find themselves obsessing over secret societies and the leading world figures being involved in such organizations. While it may sound like just another fear-peddling conspiracy to try and pursue society to relinquish government control over them, there is some truth to the matter. A few notable United States officials have been engaged in secret societies, or at least one specific secret society. We've already heard about the Bohemian Grove, the secret campground in Monte Rio, California, that saw the secret meetings of notable individuals. Members included Herbert Hoover, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Clarence Thomas, Gerald Ford, Teddy Roosevelt, and George Bush. While the existence of the secret meeting ground already eerily confirms the idea that the American leaders were part of a secret society, there's one establishment that came before it. It was the Skull and Bones Society, made up of senior students at Yale University, New Haven. The organization was formed back in 1832 by William Huntington Russell and Alphonso Taft. It was reportedly created following a dispute over the election of Phi Beta Kappa. Its emblem was a daunting skull and crossbones with the number 322 beneath it. Its clubhouse was the Brownstone Building in New Haven, known as the Tomb. The Skull and Bones Society is the oldest of several other secret societies that were established on the Yale campus. The organization had mostly kept its affairs secret, but for years it did publish its membership roster. Some of the members were high achievers, others were descendants of socially prominent families, and a few more would later become the presidents of the United States. George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, and William Howard Taft had once been members of this secret society, only to become presidents later. Other notable powerful American families who were mentioned on the roster include the Rockefellers, Vanderbilts, Fords, Phelps, Pillsbury, Whitneys, and Walkers. There were also other household names including John F. Kerry, John Hersey, Henry Luce, Prescott Bush, and many, many more. The mysterious entity exercised much influence over the Yale students, so it was important not to offend the wrong people. Every freshman hoped that they would be accepted into the Brotherhood so that they could project to become a household name, a president, or a high-up official. Whatever had been going on in the secret society, which is yet to be revealed, greatly influenced the members and their career paths. This early involvement in such an establishment may have given rise to their prominence. Number 1. One of the world's leading conspiracy theories is that of Big Pharma, the collective term for all the major multinational pharmaceutical companies. It's the most profitable industry in the world, which has given rise to several major theories. For years, theorists have warned that these massive corporations are acting in an incredibly dangerous and secretive manner, their sinister ways directly harming patients. Some have suggested that the pharmaceutical industry is concealing effective treatments or intentionally worsening a wide range of diseases, all of which are in pursuit of higher profits. Such claims state that the general public is living in a state of ignorance, and perhaps we are. Hundreds of doctors earned big money from drug companies was the headline of an ABC News article. The article revealed an extensive investigation carried out by ProPublica, which uncovered an alarming act committed by the pharmaceutical industry and the trusty nurses and doctors from whom we seek healthcare. In 2010, ProPublica found that several pharmaceutical companies were paying out over $250 million to some 17,000 doctors and nurses across the United States. ProPublica, an investigative journalism group, compiled and published their findings that revealed how doctors were being paid by leading companies to not only promote certain types of medications, but also serve as medical consultants and even speak at conferences. 7 major pharmaceutical makers who manufacture a staggering 35% of medications sold to America had made payments of $100,000 to almost 400 doctors, which they publicly revealed. Such companies included AstraZeneca, Cephalon, Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Pfizer, and GlaxoSmithKline. Only 2 of these 7 companies had disclosed the information willingly. But that's just 7 of the 70 pharmaceutical companies operating in the United States that have publicly disclosed their financial relationship with healthcare providers. This professional transaction does not necessarily mean that the healthcare providers are prescribing harmful medications, but it could mean that they're prescribing unnecessary ones with more side effects, or ones that require other medications to manage said side effects. It's also not illegal for healthcare professionals to be hired or paid by such companies, but it is unethical for the financial relationship to not be publicly disclosed. The ProPublica investigation further revealed that the top 15 pharmaceutical companies in the United States, which make up 68% of the prescription market, had not been disclosing physician payments. Following these discoveries, a healthcare reform legislation called the Physician Payments Sunshine Act was brought into effect. The reason that this type of transparency matters is because there are some prescription medications that can be harmful to the public who are still recovering from an opioid epidemic. It's only instinct to blame addicts for abusing such pharmaceuticals, but those medications didn't materialize out of thin air. Investigation revealed that OxyContin manufacturer Purdue was completely aware that their product may result in addictive behaviors, yet they continued to sell it. Internal documents inevitably revealed marketing memos suggesting that they'd acted with the intent to mislead not just the consumers, but the very doctors they were paying in an effort to generate a higher income. Purdue had spent millions of dollars to market the pharmaceutical to doctors as a better alternative to the generic versions. Investigations such as these reveal the truth behind the conspiracy theories. Big Pharma's primary objective is to make as much money as it possibly can. It's also the pharmaceutical industry that has the moral responsibility to protect consumers. Whether these two objectives can ever coexist, well, that remains unknown. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.